While my sister held the keys to her brand new BMW, I sat inside the house with a hospital estimate folded in my lap. She was glowing, laughing out loud, tossing her hair like she was in some ad for a luxury dealership. Dad had his phone out recording the whole thing. Mom had even tied a big red ribbon around the hood like it was Christmas morning. It wasn't Christmas. It was just Saturday. I was sitting at the kitchen table, the same one where we used to do homework, eat spaghetti on paper plates, argue about the thermostat. But that afternoon, the only sound in the house was the hum of the refrigerator and the muffled joy outside. I didn't say a word. I just looked down at the piece of paper. Out-of-pocket responsibility, $7,340. I'd gone to Penn General 3 days earlier after the clinic near my job told me I needed further testing. They'd run scans, blood work. The doctor was gentle but serious. "Lauren, this isn't going to go away on its own. If it gets worse, it could affect more than just your stomach." I nodded, took the printout, and left. Walked 3 blocks to the bus stop, holding my coat shut with one hand and that estimate with the other. I hadn't told anyone yet. Not really. Not even Mom. Not until I was sure. That Saturday was supposed to be the day I'd bring it up over coffee, maybe after the dishes. Just find the right moment. But there they were, outside, grinning and posing, calling Sienna our superstar. "You earned this." Mom beamed. "You deserve it." And I just sat behind the window, one hand clutching a diagnosis and the other tracing the chipped wood of the table edge. Funny thing is, I didn't feel jealous. Not of the car, not of her. I felt forgotten. Like someone had closed a door I didn't realize I was still behind, and all I could think was, the truth is, the pain didn't start all at once. It crept in slowly. At first, it just felt like a tightness in my lower stomach, something I chalked up to stress, or maybe too much coffee on an empty stomach. You know how it is. You think it's nothing. I'll walk it off. But then it started waking me up at night. Dull at first, then sharp. Like something inside me twisting tight and not letting go. I still didn't tell anyone. Not yet. I was working 4 days a week at the Lantern Cafe and Books downtown, mostly restocking barista shifts, some register. No benefits. No health plan. Just enough to pay rent on my half of the basement unit and keep groceries basic. I tried ginger tea heating pads over-the-counter meds. Even asked Cheryl, one of the older servers, if she had any home remedies. She gave me a bottle of clove oil and said, "Rub it on your belly and pray." But nothing stuck. Nothing worked. I kept going, though, because that's what you do when you're the one who doesn't make trouble. Growing up, I was the quiet one, the helper, the extra set of hands. I babysat Sienna through half her childhood while Mom worked the second shift and Dad ran his landscaping business. Sienna was always the golden girl. Straight A's, spelling bees, flute recitals, summer camps. I'd be the one behind the camera while Mom called out, "Smile bigger, baby," and she did. Always. I didn't resent her for it, not really. It just became clear over time that some people shine naturally in a family, and some people keep the lights on in the background. So when I finally couldn't ignore the pain anymore, I went to the clinic 2 blocks from the bookstore. They did a few quick tests and told me I needed to see someone at Penn General. I waited another week just to schedule that. My body already knew something was wrong, but my wallet wasn't ready to agree. That appointment was the one where the doctor looked me in the eyes and said, "You may need surgery. Endometriosis may be advanced. If we don't deal with it soon, it could affect your reproductive health and more." He handed me a thick envelope with my blood work scan summary and the estimate. "It's manageable," he added, trying to soften the weight of it. "But don't sit on this." I nodded, said thank you, walked home slow. That was 3 days before the BMW showed up in our driveway. I kept thinking if I had just told them earlier, if I'd said something the day I got the test results, maybe it would have changed how that Saturday went. But deep down, I waited until after dinner. Not a special one, just leftover baked ziti and a store-brand salad mix. The kind of meal where nobody really talks, just chews with the TV murmuring in the background. I let them finish, washed a few dishes, dried my hands on the corner of a dish towel I'd seen in our kitchen since high school. Then I said it. "Can I talk to you both for a second?" I remember how slowly Mom turned her head, like I'd asked her to pause a really important meeting instead of a rerun of NCIS. Dad muted the TV, but he didn't look at me. Just stared ahead like whatever I had to say was going to be complicated. My palms were already sweating. It's about something medical, I began. I saw a doctor at Penn General. They're thinking it's endometriosis. Maybe advanced. Silence. I swallowed and kept going. He said surgery would be the best course of action. The estimates here, I added, sliding the folded paper onto the table. I've been in a lot of pain. Mom glanced at the paper but didn't touch it. Didn't you always have stomach issues? She asked, like I'd brought up some old ankle injury from 5th grade. This isn't the same, I said quietly. It's gotten worse. Dad let out this long, tired exhale, the kind I'd heard 100 times growing up, usually right before a lecture. Lauren, we're not saying we don't care. He started rubbing his temples. But things are tight right now, with interest rates, inflation, just everything. You know how it is. I'm not asking for all of it, I said quickly. I can cover some. I can't do the whole thing alone. Mom leaned forward, then elbows on the table. Have you looked into medical loans or GoFundMe? People your age do that all the time now. You're not a child anymore, Lauren. That landed harder than I expected. Not because she was wrong, but because there wasn't even a flicker of concern in her voice. Just inconvenience. Just a problem to outsource. I nodded, said, okay, picked up the paper and quietly walked back down the hall to my room. Behind me, I heard the click of the remote as Dad turned the volume back up. That was it. No door slam, no big argument, just nothing. And sitting on the edge of my bed that night, I couldn't help but think, when did needing help become something I had to apologize for? The car came the next weekend. I heard the beep of the truck out front just after 11 a.m., a flatbed from the local dealership backing into the driveway like it belonged there. I was in the kitchen again, rinsing out my coffee mug. Lauren, Mom called from the porch. Come see what your sister got. She said it like it was a surprise, but everything about it felt planned. The ribbon, the timing, the phone already in Dad's hand set to record. I stepped out but didn't go far, just hovered by the screen door. Sienna stood next to the white BMW, eyes wide, hands to her face like she couldn't believe it. Is this real? She laughed. Is this seriously mine? You earned it, sweetheart, Dad said, zooming in with his phone. Graduating with honors, landing that internship, this is just the beginning. Mom was already posing with her, angling her body for the best shot. Smile with the keys, she chirped. Let's do one for Facebook. Oh, and a boomerang. Sienna tossed her hair and spun the key fob in her fingers like she'd done it 100 times. I stood there in the shadow of the doorframe, one hand still damp from the sink. Nobody looked my way. Not once. I didn't want the car. I didn't even want the attention. I just wanted to be seen. To have one moment, just one, where someone turned to me and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" But they were laughing now, joking about road trips and insurance and, "You're not speeding, right?" And I realized I could have vanished right then, walked straight down the sidewalk and kept going, and nobody would have noticed until it was time to post the group photo. That's when I turned back into the house, closed the door gently behind me, and stared at the corner of the refrigerator. There was a magnet with an old picture still stuck there. A vacation from years ago, Sienna in the middle, Dad's arms around her, Mom holding the camera. I was the one cropped at the edge, half a smile, half a shoulder. And somehow even then, they'd already learned how to frame a memory without me. After that Saturday, I stopped trying to be part of the noise. I adjusted my work schedule, took more early shifts, closed a few evenings, said yes when the manager asked who could cover on Sundays. Nobody at home noticed. Sometimes I'd come in after 9 p.m., shoes soaked from the rain apron folded in my backpack. The house would be dark except for the blue flicker of the TV through the living room curtain. Other times I'd already be gone by the time anyone woke up. I started eating at work oatmeal packets during the lull between the breakfast rush and the book club regulars. Whatever was left in the pastry case by 3 p.m., I'd wrap in napkins and eat standing up in the back hallway. My room became a storage unit for me more than a place to rest. I stopped bringing laundry to the main basket, started doing it late at night in the garage sink. I didn't want questions, didn't want pity. The pain hadn't gone away. If anything, it had changed shape, becoming quieter but sharper, like my body had learned to suffer more politely. One morning, while wiping tables near the front window, a customer I barely knew looked at me and said, "Sweetheart, are you okay?" I blinked. Not because of what she said, but because she'd said anything at all. "I'm fine," I whispered. But she didn't buy it. She just gave me that look, one I hadn't seen in weeks. Concern. That night, I went home and opened the shared family calendar app we'd used for years. Vacations, appointments, birthdays. I deleted myself from it, one line at a time. Then I went to the living room photo wall. I wasn't in many of them to begin with, but there was one from our backyard graduation party 3 years ago. Sienna cap tilted. Mom holding flowers. Dad with barbecue tongs. Me in the back holding the guest list. I didn't take it down. I just turned it slightly on the nail so it tilted away from the light. I didn't slam doors. I didn't say goodbye. But the next day, when Sienna came home with takeout and asked, "Where's Lauren?" Mom didn't even pause to look around. She just said, "Probably at work." And that was enough for everyone. But what happens when no one notices that you stopped coming back? It started with a phone call. Not to me, to my parents from Grandpa. He rarely called them, preferred text, or the occasional group email with too many ellipses and the subject line in all caps. But this time it was different. I heard about it secondhand through Aunt Marianne, who worked with him on the board of the housing trust. Grandpa had received a letter from the university's financial office. Apparently, Sienna had taken out a loan under the family's name, co-signed without permission, to lease her apartment uptown, the internship she bragged about unpaid, the side job let go after 2 weeks, and the car not paid in full. Not even close. The dealership had sent a notice to Dad's business address. Final payment due. Grandpa had seen enough. He called, calmly, firmly, and told them to sit down. "Do you know where Lauren is?" he asked. Silence on their end. "Do you know what she's going through?" More silence. "Because she called me, he lied. And I know." That last line cracked something. They didn't call me right away, but they stopped posting. Sienna's TikToks disappeared. Mom archived all the graduation photos. The ribboned car pic gone. I watched from a distance, quiet still, like someone watching strangers rearrange a room they forgot you once lived in. 2 weeks later, Dad sent a group text. "If anyone hears from Lauren, ask her to call home." I didn't respond, but I read it. That same night, I got a letter. Not an email. A printed envelope hand-addressed. Grandpa. Inside a check, and a sticky note in his handwriting. "For whatever you need. You were never invisible to me." That was the first time I cried. Really cried. Not from pain, but because just one person had remembered that I was more than just background. A few days later, Mom tried calling. Then Dad. I didn't answer. They weren't calling to say sorry. They were calling because things were breaking and they needed someone who wouldn't drop the pieces. But I wasn't coming back. I'd been the quiet one for so long, they forgot. Quiet doesn't mean weak. They forgot that sometimes the person sitting at the edge of the photo is the one who remembers where the light actually came from. And now they were sitting at a table with one empty chair and finally noticing the seat that had always been holding everything together. They didn't stop trying. Texts, missed calls, a voicemail from Mom that started with, "I don't even know what you're so upset about," and ended with, "Family is still family, Lauren." That one stayed unopened. I didn't block them. I just didn't answer. Grandpa followed up once just to check how I was feeling after the procedure. I told him the truth. Recovery was slow, but I was healing. "Good," he said, "but don't go back there unless you want to." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Weeks passed, the season shifted, and suddenly, it was fall. One afternoon, I ran into Dad at the pharmacy. He saw me before I saw him, paused in the aisle holding a bottle of cold medicine. "Lauren," he said softly, like saying my name alone might pull me back. I looked at him. Really looked. He seemed smaller, like the world had pushed inward. "I didn't know you were still around," he said. I smiled just a little. "I was never far," I said. He opened his mouth maybe to explain, maybe to ask, but I cut in gently, my voice calm. "I was there the whole time. You just didn't look." And with that, I walked past him. No anger, no drama. Just a sentence he couldn't argue with, and silence that for once wasn't mine to carry. At Thanksgiving, they sent a group photo. Big dining table, turkey in the center, Grandpa smiling at the head. But right where I used to sit between Sienna and the window, there was an empty chair. No one sat in it. No plate. No napkin. Just space. I didn't reply to the message. But I saved the picture, printed it, folded it once, and slipped it into the back pocket of an old journal I almost threw out last year. Not because I needed it, but because someday, if I ever forget how quiet the erasure felt, I'll have proof that they finally saw it too. That chair was never just empty. It was a memory they could no longer crop out. If you've ever been the chair no one saved, you don't have to explain it. Just leave a quiet below.